For the Bears. And Ben Johnson is seeing continued growth from Caleb Williams. But fans and media want more. Can Williams deliver? We'll hear from Caleb and Ben Johnson, along with Cassie Carlson, The Athletic's Dan Weeder, and CHSN's Clay Harbor. It's an all Bears Wednesday edition of Chicago Sports Tonight. Now.
From Fox 32 Chicago Sports, this is Chicago Sports Tonight.
All right, welcome into Chicago Sports Tonight on this Wednesday night. Lou Canellis with you. Lots of news out of Hallis Hall today, so let's bring in Cassie Carlson and The Athletic's Dan Weeder. Great to see both of you. Bears signed safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson today. Bears are his fourth team since he was part of Philadelphia's Super Bowl winner last season. Great talent. He's obviously a heated player on the football field. I know that Cassie will get into that in a second. Despite all the injuries in the secondary, is this guy worth what he brings to the Bears in the locker room?
Well, I think there's a ton of upside because you look at what he did in 2024 when he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He had 6 interceptions, and the Bears being the takeaway machine that they want to be over a consistent season. The upside is there. The discipline, I think, is the biggest question mark because you can point to 2 plays in particular that involve C.J. Gardner-Johnson and the Bears back in 2020 when 2 players were ejected from games after getting in fights with him on the field. So you have Javon Wims and Anthony Miller. Everyone remembers Anthony Miller. I was back in Memphis during that time watching that game on TV, and he was a Memphis kid, and so I remember that happening and being like, oh my goodness. So I think at this point what Ben Johnson said is they have a pretty healthy injury report at this point in the season, and a lot of it is in the defensive secondary, and so they need bodies. And Kyler Gordon being on IR, they're hoping it's just a short stint with those 4 games that he's going to have to miss, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson is going to slide into the slot and work there first, and then we'll see where this goes, and I guess you can say see how long he's on this team.
Right. From a football standpoint, this makes all the sense in the world. It gives you a guy that can play that slot corner role that Kyler Gordon vacates with him moving to injured reserve, and you see a guy that plays with instincts, a guy who can be a weapon in both the run defense and the pass defense. But this extracurricular stuff is something you got to keep an eye on, and with the culture that Ben Johnson is trying to build inside this locker room, I'm curious to see how much tolerance they have for some of the behavior that you're expecting to happen with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Again, Lou mentioned his 4th team in this calendar year of 2025. That's not a lot of staying power in these other organizations, and so you're going to have to figure out what kind of guy you're getting. He's got familiarity with Dennis Allen. That should help, but I want to see how long the leash is for C.J. Gardner.
I think something interesting, too, is a lot of people were saying, well, this is a guy that Ryan Poles would never bring onto this team 3 years ago, but now because they maybe have more of those veteran leaders in the locker room, that they feel like they can have the discipline in the locker room for him to be able to thrive in Chicago at this point. Here's what Ben Johnson had to say about it.
We've got a very strong locker room. We've got a positive veteran influence in there. I feel very strongly about that group, and nothing's more important than our locker room, to be clear with you. So that's certainly first and foremost of any decision we make, who we bring in or who we let go. And so I think we're all aware of how important that is and the fit that he has with that locker room.
I'm excited. Just the energy, that I've seen from him. Obviously, over time of him being in the league, I think he has a lot of great ball when he's on the field, and I think just being around him today, the energy, the effort that I saw when he was out there, he made a good play out there today, and just being able to be around him, being able to have everybody put open arms and things like that, and we figure out who he is and where he should be and how he fits into us, and I think that's where we're going to be at, and I'm excited to have him.
And Ben Johnson also a little bit familiar with him from him being on the Lions, and he was put on injured reserve that year, but he did see him in training camp, called a competitor, and I think you're just still looking at all of the receivers that the Bears are going to have to go up against this season, and you need corners. You need guys who will be able to shut down those top receivers, most notably would be Jamar Chase this week.
I get what you're saying, both of you, and I understand what Ben Johnson said, but, I mean, he had a terrific year last year on the football field for the Eagles, leading to a Super Bowl, and then the Eagles dump him. The Texans only keep him for 3 games. He doesn't even play a game for Baltimore. And my worry is, does he become a distraction in the locker room? And if yes, is it Dennis Allen's problem because he played for Dennis Allen? Is it a veteran's problem inside that locker room? What's the latest on Tyreek Stevenson? Jalen Johnson, I get it, is out for the season, but what happens when Kyler Gordon comes back? When there's no spot for this guy to play, then what happens? Do we worry that he becomes a distraction?
Lou, I share your worries. I do worry that some of the extracurricular behavioral stuff, again, that you're expecting to occur with C.J. Gardner-Johnson because it's occurred everywhere he's been in his NFL career, will surface here. And then you've just got to figure out how you're going to deal with it when it does occur. I think things are trending in the right direction with Tyreek Stevenson. I think he's got a potential to play in Cincinnati this weekend. And so now you're just trying to get that secondary as stabilized as possible, again, going into a matchup this week in Cincinnati where it's not just Jamar Chase, it's T. Higgins, and it's a quarterback, if Joe Flacco is healthy enough, that can light you up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, the good news about Tyreek Stevenson is he was back at practice, and we'll find out probably more of a limited fashion. So the shoulder injury that he did miss last week's game for, he wasn't put on IR, so that's a good sign there, because then you're looking at the outside corners, and Nashawn Wright, who came in as a free agent signing, you're like, oh, who's this guy? Turns into your number one corner. You have Nick McLeod, who's coming in, doesn't have much experience, and in the secondary was the strength of this Bears team coming into the season, and now you're looking at just what they have available, and they don't really even have bodies and depth at the position anymore. So I think everyone is very curious of how this is going to play out, and seeing, if he can maximize his talent on the field while minimizing the voice in the locker room.
That makes sense. All right, let's talk about Caleb Williams. Williams also spoke to the media today. Ben Johnson, after further review, said Caleb played better against Baltimore than he did the previous game against New Orleans. Guys, have we seen enough growth from Caleb Williams 7 games into his second season?
Lou, the short answer is no, because this is a quarterback that was drafted first overall with the belief that he was going to become the engine of a decade's worth of playoff runs, right? That this team was going to be competitive for a long time. That growth has got to accelerate quickly because Caleb Williams has to become the reason that the Bears win football games very soon. He can't just be a passenger in the car on this journey that the Bears are going on. And he hasn't been good enough since the bye week. He hasn't been good enough all season. There has been growth. There has been improvement. There's no question about that. But you're talking about trying to get a guy to become a star, a tier 1 quarterback in this league. And at this point, we have no evidence that he's on that track. And you've got to start seeing some of that evidence soon.
Well, you definitely don't want to be the reason that you're losing games either. And I felt like, in the past game, while Ben Johnson said he looked at the tape and he didn't feel like he played as poorly as he did the week prior, I think the one thing that stands out to me right now is when Ben Johnson was hired, a lot of people wanted to see the explosive plays. And the Bears lead the league in explosive plays right now, which is kind of crazy. But what we're missing from Caleb Williams are the dump-off plays and just being the point guard, which was stressed when he came in his rookie season. I feel like he's gotten away from that a little bit more than what we would expect to see in his second year. And given the fact that Ben Johnson keeps stressing, find the checkdowns, the screen game, how can they get that going and using that? Because we've seen it play to their advantage, whether it be a dump-off to Kyle Monangai or DeAndre Swift or getting DJ Moore more targets.
Sure.
I think that's a huge question mark right now, is why is DJ Moore not involved as much in the passing game and the way he's able to get yards after catch, which is he's one of the best in the league at doing.
Well, and keep an eye on the Bears receiving core this week because it's beat up. Olamide Zaccheaus left Sunday's game with a knee issue. Luther Burden is in concussion protocol. We're still waiting for official word on Rome Odunze and DJ Moore for this week. And so you got to find some people that can catch those passes from Caleb Williams, and Caleb's got to find a way to become more comfortable and find a rhythm with this offense.
We're in a great spot as a team. I know we lost his last game, and we were in positions to win or score touchdowns to get ahead early and things like that, and that didn't happen. And so we, like I said, we find solutions, and we're in a great spot as a team, as a locker room, coaching staff. We all, we still have that belief, that known factor of us going out there and winning these games.
Do you sense any frustration from Ben Johnson that the growth of Caleb Williams maybe isn't happening fast enough?
I think there's been a public vocalization of him wanting to see him make different decisions, but I think that's kind of what that's as far as he can go with Caleb Williams, because as soon as the head coach starts saying things, then the rest of the city is going to be out and following the head coach.
I think you can sense some impatience more than you can hear some impatience, and I think Ben Johnson's a type A, competitive, cutthroat guy that wants to get this thing moving in the right direction as fast as possible, and he needs his quarterback to catch up to the timeline that he wants to be on. And so over time, this next month stretch of games, 5 games in November, it's going to challenge the patience of the quarterback, the head coach, and everyone involved with this football team to figure out how long are they willing to wait for that significant emergence.
Hey, he said Sunday and Monday, I'm talking about Ben Johnson, he said that the leaders on this team need to take the initiative to make sure that these penalties at the present pace that we're getting them from the Bears at over 9 a game, that it needs to stop. Is Caleb Williams one of those leaders he's talking about, Cassie?
I mean, he's a captain of this team, so he definitely counts. And when you're the quarterback of this team, it all falls on your shoulders a lot of the time to get this thing on track. I think one thing that I'm more curious about the next time we can talk to Ben Johnson is like what that specifically looks like in the locker room of what he expects his leaders to do behind closed doors to make sure that everyone on the team is getting the message. Because it's not just really been one person with these penalties. It has been a collective of every player, especially on offense, when it comes to mind.
Well, and I sort of pushed Ben on Monday to specify what he means in terms of the ownership of the cleanup process for this football team, and he said if you see something, say something. And it's sort of this plea to his locker room leaders to basically not allow for some of these bad habits in practice to persist so that they then leak over into the game. And then you've got 72 penalties, 64 enforced through 7 games. It's way too many. The offensive side of the ball, Ben is driven crazy by pre-snap infractions. They've got to get those cleaned up in a hurry. 16 false starts already this season. That's way too many.
Any other nuggets or notes you guys want to throw my way?
No, I think it's just all going to be eyes on seeing if this Bears team can get healthy. And as Dan mentioned, some of the receivers who left the game, Luther Bird in concussion protocol, Olamide Zaccheaus with the knee injury. I think you're looking forward to see what Austin Booker can do, activated off IR, and see if he can provide a pass rush for this team.
We got a little bit of an explanation from Ben Johnson today on that final pass of Sunday, the misfire from Caleb Williams to a wide open DJ Moore in the back of the end zone. He essentially said it's a shared responsibility and that sure he would like DJ to continue along that back line of the end zone, but that's a play that every NFL quarterback's got to hit, and so there's a feeling of some missed opportunities within a missed opportunity game Sunday in Baltimore.
All right, guys. Cassie, Dan, great work. Thanks for the time. Dan, we'll be reading your work in The Athletic. Cassie, we will talk tomorrow. Bears conversation continues after a break. CHSN's Clay Harbor, former NFL tight end, stops by. He'll tell us why Caleb's development has now fallen behind the Patriots' Drake May as we continue with Chicago Sports Tonight. Welcome back to Chicago Sports Tonight Daily. Luke and Ellis with you. Let me bring in a good guy. Someone who I really respect with the work he's been doing so far at CHSN, covering the NFL, covering the Bears. Good to see you, Clay Harbor.
Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I love having him on. He played in the NFL as well. I want to get right into it because I want to talk about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who signed a contract with the Bears, and I want to get into why it was a good move for this organization. This is a guy, his production you cannot argue with. 6 interceptions last year when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. But then the Eagles trade him away to the Texans. He lasts 3 games. And then he's released by the Texans, and he goes to Baltimore, doesn't even see the field, and now the Bears pick him up. Is he worth the gamble?
I think he's worth the gamble. If you were giving up any type of currency for him, I would say no. Maybe he's not worth it. But when you're getting a guy who has had success, I've covered some things with the Eagles. That's a team that drafted me. 94 WIP, Inside the Birds, did some time with NBC Sports Philadelphia. He's a folk hero out there. He's a guy that plays with passion, he plays hard, and he is a versatile chess piece. He's one of these guys that are like Kyler Gordon, light, Kyler Gordon diet. He can do all the things Kyler Gordon does. Maybe not as well, but he's a blitzer. And I look back at some of his time with Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen from 2019 to 2021 blitzed him 83 times, 3 sacks, 18 pressures. So you're going to see him fill that role that Kyler Gordon's going to fill. Yes, he will help with the slot defense, but he's also going to be a guy that can work in the run game, big-time tackler, not afraid of contact, and you can blitz him off the edge, or even through the middle. So he's a chess piece that Dennis Allen can use, similar to that of Kyler Gordon.
All right, what happens when Kyler Gordon comes back? Because there's the chance that Gordon can come back for that Steelers game. We don't know about Tyreek Stevenson, going into this week, let alone the next 3-4 weeks. What do you do with C.J. Gardner-Johnson if Kyler Gordon's back?
That's the thing. You had to have these conversations with him, right? He's had time with Ben Johnson. He's had time with Dennis Allen. Like I said, Dennis Allen, 3 years with him in Houston. So you have the conversation with him, say, hey, we got our guy, Kyler Gordon, signed me the biggest nickel contract in the NFL. He's our guy. But you'll be backing up safety. You'll be backing up cornerback. You'll be backing up both safeties. So he's got to be okay with the fact that when Kyler Gordon comes back, he will not see as much time. And if he's not, then guess what? You gave up nothing for him. He's got a 4-week audition before Kyler's even ready, coming off of IR, to see what he can do. Can he fit in that locker room is going to be a big question.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, if he becomes a nuisance for this team, whose job is it to keep him on the straight and narrow? Is it Dennis Allen, who he played for? Is it a teammate inside the locker room? You have been inside an NFL locker room. How does it work?
Exactly. I think it starts with DA. And DA is a guy that's had history with him, so there's probably a level of respect there. When you're going and you're playing with one of your former offensive coordinators, I've done that before, former tight end coach was now an offensive coordinator, you have a respect. You want to play for that guy. They took a gamble on you. They brought you in here. And then I have to say, Kevin Byard, he's the leader of that secondary group.
Point.
This guy's played for 11 years. He's seen all types of different guys, and he's a guy that you respect. The most interceptions since he's come in the league. That's a guy that C.J. Gardner comes in. He says, I respect this guy. This guy's done it at a high level for a long time, and I'm going to follow the path that he's setting before me.
All right, I want to look ahead to the Cincinnati game just for a second. We don't know who's starting at quarterback yet for the Bengals, Joe Flacco or Browning, but who's going to cover Jamar Chase? Because he's getting almost half the targets.
Yeah, he's had 54 targets in the last 3 games. If you put T. Higgins in there, 74 targets in 3 games between those two guys. It's about Dennis Allen. Or you give them help over the top, which you probably need. But when you do that, Joe Flacco is very good about getting the ball out on time. So now you're putting an emphasis on your pass rush, which hasn't been very good. Montez Sweat had a gift sack last week. Haven't got anything from Dio Dangbo. So I want to see a couple of these two interior guys, Jervon Dexter and Grady Jarrett, create some pressure up the middle. Tyler Huntley could run away from that. Lamar Jackson could have ran away from that. A lot of guys can run away from that. Joe Flacco, he's older than me. He's not going to run away from that if you get that pressure in the middle.
That's why it's so important. All right, I want to talk about Caleb Williams. It's been the hot topic since the game on Sunday against Baltimore. If you take out Caleb's numbers against Dallas and you use the eye test, it has not looked good in the 6 of 7 games. Where are you with Williams?
Hasn't looked good on the eye test, or it hasn't really looked good on the stat sheet outside of that Dallas Cowboys game. What I'm seeing is a guy who is improving. I think it's
how? Where? Tell me where.
Yeah, so I think he's cut his sack rate in half. That's something that you see. He's getting the ball out quicker. Yes, he's still, according to Next Gen Stats, the guy that's holding the ball the longest in the entire NFL, but that's because he is trying to make these big splash plays. He's more on time. Believe it or not, he is better pre-snap with the motions. I know they got a ton of penalties. We got to get those figured out, but he's better on time, in the pocket, and he's better cutting down the sack rates. Now you got to see him in these big-time situations not make the mistake like he did last week. Interception when you're backed up. And what's kind of indicting to me, Harbaugh's got a chance to go for it on a 4th and short. Instead, he punts the ball down to the 4th-yard line, says, I trust my defense, who has been the worst defense in the league, Baltimore Ravens, besides the Cincinnati Bengals, for the last few weeks. And guess what? He trusted his defense because Caleb Williams and his defense, he thought they could win that battle. They did. They intercepted the ball. They gave him the ball on the 9-yard line, and that was all she wrote.
It was sad. You said you saw growth. Do you believe that Ben Johnson is still in this guy's corner? He's seeing the same growth that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I think he's seeing the growth that he's saying. That. So Ben's a guy that there's some of these coaches that you're just going to get coach speak from him. When he says something, he's real.
You're buying it.
He's real. I'm buying it. And you look at some of the numbers from Jared Goff to Caleb Williams, their first few games with Ben Johnson, and there's some similarities there. I think Caleb will take a jump for the end of the season. But this thing always isn't linear. It's not going to go at the same rate all the time. And I think Caleb is taking longer than some of the other quarterbacks that you're seeing around the league. But I think that Caleb is still getting better. It might be you're taking the stairs instead of the elevator. He will get there, but it's going to be a process.
How patient do Bears fans need to be with Caleb?
I think I get it. I get the Bears fans looking at these guys because you look at Drake May and you look at his weapons. You look at his offensive line, not great. He's even younger than Caleb. So that's the one that's kind of the outlier because Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix played the most snaps, 1 and 2, in college football history as a quarterback. So in my eyes, I realize those reps matter, whether it's college or the games and they played in a similar offense like they play now. as far as Drake May, he's the outlier. He's the guy you look at and say, hey, what's going on here? This guy is setting records, not just for rookies, second-year players. He's setting records for people that have played the game their whole lives. He's being mentioned in the likes of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning with some of the things he's been doing of late. So, yes, it's tough to see that when you're a Bears team struggling to find your quarterback, but I think it's all on different tracks. It's all in different paces. Some of them, it's not linear. Some guys shoot up, and then they level off. Some guys are level, then they shoot up. And I think Caleb, if he keeps working, has shown that he has the ability to be one of those guys that will get there, but it's going to take some patience.
All right, let's hope so. NFL trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. When you look at the Bears and where they are going into this weekend against Cincinnati, do you go out and try to swing a deal for a defensive back, a pass rusher, maybe even a left tackle?
I wouldn't. I don't think that you have the currency to give up for that. You've already given up a 4th-round pick to bring Joe Thuney here. You've given up a 6th-round pick to bring Jonah Jackson here. So your late-round picks are already minimized. You want to keep those just in case there's somebody you love coming up in the draft. And then as far as maybe even bringing somebody in or sending someone out, DJ Moore's a name that people have been bringing up about.
Oh, stop. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it either.
You need DJ Moore.
I
know you need DJ Moore. But you have a plethora of receivers now, obviously with Luther Burden, OZ, Rome's kind of breaking out, Colson Loveland. You're not getting all these guys the ball.
Whether Joe Flacco's back and is able to play or it's Jake Browning against the Bengals, how do you see this game against Cincinnati for the Bears?
I think it depends on who's the quarterback, but Joe Flacco finished that game. I know he went out and he came back in. So if Joe Flacco's there, this offense is going to have to score some points. Their offense, Cincinnati Bengals offense, is really good. It's not just Higgins. It's not just Chase right now. Their running game, they had 180 yards against the Jets. They had 141 yards the week before. This offensive running game has gotten going, and that's tough because the Bears stopped the run for a bit. But then you get back to last week. You see teams are running the ball on them again. So this offense is really good defensively. The Bengals are not good. You're going to have to move the ball. They're bad in the red zone. They're bad on 3rd down. They're giving up the most points per game, the 2nd most yards per game. So if you can't figure it out against this team, I don't think there's anybody else you're going to get it together against.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on out.
My pleasure, Lou.
I love it. Clay Harbor in the house joining us here on CST. We'll be back to wrap up Chicago Sports Tonight right after this timeout. Welcome back to CST. Lou Canellis with you. In Detroit, Lions signed edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson to a 4-year, $180 million extension. It includes a $141 million guaranteed portion of that contract. Hutchinson's $45 million average salary trails only Micah Parsons, who's going to make $46.5 million. Jam-packed show Thursday night. Good Morning Football's Jamie Erdahl from the NFL Network joins us. Nick Costas from BetMGM will try to make us all some money this weekend. Plus, our very own Cassie Carlson checks in from Hallis Hall as the Bears continue to get ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll also throw in some World Series talk ahead of Game 6 Friday night right here on Fox. Thanks to Cassie, the Athletics' Dan Weeder, and Clay Harbor from CHSN for joining us tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow starting at 6 on Fox Local and 9:30 on Fox 32. See ya!